Good afternoon. Thank you for coming to our share-out session on differentiation in Russian language classrooms. After a general introduction to the concept and practice of differentiation, we will present specific ways that we differentiate in our own Russian language classrooms. In the interest of time, we will each introduce ourselves. I'm Catharine Cooke, and I teach middle school and high school Russian at Mill River Union High School, a public high school in Vermont. This is my 9th year teaching Russian there, but I have also taught Russian at 2 other high schools. I've recently joined the ACTR board and will be offering an overview of differentiation. Why plan with differentiation in mind? Differentiation is a student-centered approach to planning and teaching that acknowledges and supports the flexibility that our everyday classroom realities require for student success. We all have very different classes, not only from year to year, but often from day to day and hour to hour. Just as we continue to learn and grow as teachers and are not the same person with the same interests every day, neither are our students. Intentionally incorporating differentiation into our teaching practice helps us create the conditions for our students to master material and skills more efficiently, feel validated as individuals, and build autonomy as learners. Approaches to differentiation are as varied and as unique as teachers themselves and their students at any given time. In other words, differentiation is a flexible approach to teaching that can serve in many situations. Most people in education are familiar with the term differentiation when it comes to teaching. Coined and developed by Carol Ann Tomlinson in 1999, this approach has been around for over 2 decades. More recently, recognizing the needs of increasingly diverse learners, as well as a growing need to teach to multiple levels simultaneously, language teachers in general and Russian instructors in particular are employing the strategies of differentiation more deliberately. Here's a brief summary of the ideas behind differentiation. Differentiation is not a particular teaching methodology. It's a way to approach planning and teaching. To differentiate is to change or vary aspects of the curriculum to meet the needs of learners, whether for groups or individuals. In planning, instructors can differentiate by content, what the students need to learn, process, how the students will master the knowledge, ideas, and skills that we need them to learn, product, the formative and summative assessments that will show what the students are learning, and learning environment, the physical arrangement of the classroom, as well as account for affect, the human relationships in the classroom, which teachers can nurture through social emotional learning and student groupings. Any or all of the aspects of teaching I just mentioned can be differentiated to address a student's or group of students' needs from 3 points of view. Readiness, how close is the student to the learning goals? What does the student need to do in order to succeed? Interest, is a topic or skill something that students will find relevant, valuable, or appealing? And learning profile, or preferences. What approaches should the teacher plan for to work with each student most effectively? Additionally, differentiation is teaching up, planning instruction and assessments with the most advanced learners in mind first, and scaffolding instruction and practice for the others, rather than the usual approach of planning for the middle and differentiating for more advanced or less advanced learners. It's a blend of whole class, group, and individual instruction. It means ongoing collaboration between teachers and students and adjustments to instruction to meet student needs. Finally, it's input and practice that is equal to a student's current proficiency +1, a bit more. To summarize our topic with a quote from Carol Ann Tomlinson, in a differentiated classroom, the teacher proactively plans and carries out varied approaches to content, process, and product in anticipation of and response to student differences in readiness, interests, and learning needs. Now we will hear some ways that our colleagues differentiate in their diverse Russian language classes with students of various ages and levels of proficiency. We'll begin with Anna Asadov. Thank you, Anna.
Hi. Hello, everyone. My name is Anna Asadov-Ossowska, and I teach Russian at San Diego State University, LARC, and San Diego Russian School. I work with students ranging from middle school to adult learners. And today I'd like to share how I use one authentic resource. So I use one authentic resource in Nike ad to differentiate instruction across proficiency levels. The ad is called «Из чего же сделаны наши девчонки?» It's a modern feminist reinterpretation of classic Russian kids song «Из чего же сделаны наши девчонки?» It challenges gender stereotypes and celebrates girls for their strength, dedication, passion, and individuality. I believe it's especially important to bring authentic resources into the classroom, uh, especially for teens, teenagers. They want real language, real people, and real issues. This advertising speaks their language emotionally and socially. They connect to the themes of identity, confidence, and breaking norms. It feels relevant, and that makes it powerful for language learning. So for the novice level, at the novice level, my goal is to build comprehension through visuals and basic vocabulary. So previewing is I introduce key vocabulary with visuals. Бежать, играть, девочка, мальчик, может. And then we add those verbs, right? Бежать, делать. While watching, we just watch a short, like 10 to 20 seconds clip, and I have them clap when they hear word девчонки, is, so very basic words. And I ask simple questions, like что она делает? Она может играть в футбол? Она любит играть в футбол или петь? And normally I do it with the topic of sports. What do you do? Чем вы увлекаетесь? Что вы делаете? Я играю в футбол, я играю в волейбол. So it's very like they know those words already. And post activity, students create mini posters. Я могу, and я могу прыгать. Я из сердца, я из энергии, из чего я сделан. Also, we do like sort them like boys sports, girls sports, everyone can do it. For the intermediate level, my goal is focus on opinions and cultural comprehension. For previewing phase, it's introduce phrases «говорят, что», но она может, девочки не должны. And then discussion questions, what do people usually say about girls in sports? What traits are considered feminine in sports? Also, I prepare fill in blanks, like they're listening and just fill in some words. And for the post-viewing activity, students write 4 sentences about how the ad portrays strong women. And another activity is students compare gender stereotypes in Russia versus United States. So let's say, это бокс. Это только для мальчиков или это для всех? Все могут делать бокс. And then writing task is напиши 4 предложения о том, как реклама Nike показывает сильных женщин. Сильные женщины, они какие? Что они делают, and so on. For advanced level, it's with advanced students. We dive into rhetorical strategies and symbolism and cultural messaging. For previewing, we do either short reading on gender and media in Russian advertising, and we have couple discussion questions like can ad be a form of protest? And during the watching, they have to see, like, кто говорит. Is it a voice of society, of this athlete, narrator? So how do they interpret this advertising? Whose perspective is being showed, right? How does they shape the message? Then for the post activity, we do either, it can be in the form of debate, or it can be homework, essay, как реклама Nike отражает современные изменения к гендеру в России. И это реклама феминизм или это маркетинг? When this advertisement came up, like in Russia, it was 50-50. Some people, they decided like cheesy, and it's like it's not actually show the problem. And some people really were like emotionally were related to this advertisement. As well, we can see that on the Cannes Festival, it was like 3 countries that did that Nike did this advertisement about women, and we can compare how in Turkey, what kind of advertisement they did for Turkey, what kind of advertisement they did for Russia, and for Saudi Arabia. So they did 3 countries, and it's a very different advertisement. So we can compare those 3 advertisements as well. So if we have,
We're
okay,
at 6 minutes.
okay. So if we have time, we can go and just talk about famous Russian athletes. And okay, so that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anna. Next, we'll hear from Irina Feofanova.
Hello, everyone. I'm sorry, Anna, you didn't get to finish. I feel like my presentation, my share will be about the same. Okay, bye. So I'll try to speak as less as possible and try to show you a lot of pictures that I have. My name is Irina Feofanova, and I teach in Summit Christian Academy in Spokane, Washington. And this is a project that we did in the actual local school. I also teach in Enlightium Academy, which is an online school where I built curriculum for middle and high school Russian world language. And I'm piloting the 6th grade this year. And I will present with the next group with one of the projects there. So for the purposes of this share out, I wanted to share on series of our scaffolding lessons that we had last semester, and we spent on them about 8 weeks. And the whole project was about different Russian-speaking countries' cultural features. We figured that in our school, not all the heritage students are from Russia when we started the Russian class. A lot of heritage students and their parents are from Ukraine, from Moldova, from Romania, from Kyrgyzia, Uzbekistan. So what we wanted to do in the cultural section, instead of learning everything about Russia, we wanted to learn about every country in particular. But because we don't have so much school hours in Russian class, we assigned every class a country. We assign a country to every class. I started the project in the beginning of the school year by showing a list of USSR countries where all the people used to speak Russian. And now, more or less, a lot of these countries still have Russian speakers that live there or who left the country and immigrated to the United States. And now these people try to, excuse me, that's outside. And a lot of these people still try to preserve Russian with their children and grandchildren and so on. I had 7 classes. So we randomly selected 7 countries that we worked on. And stop working. Every scaffolding lesson was on one part of the project. This is one of the results of the presentation of one of the classes on Kyrgyzstan. So each scaffolding lesson was one little project that would be part of the bigger presentation. First, we worked on the flag. Each class had their own flag coloring. We looked at the colors, the symbolism, and all for that one country. Then we looked at the map. We named some of the surrounding countries in Russian. We found and located that country on the map. Then we looked at the capital and the tourist attraction. We went through a lot of pictures, did a lot of discussions where they would like to go. Depending on the level of the class, this project was for novice level, but some of the classes that I have here have more heritage students than others. So most of the project was in English, but we could squeeze in some of the Russian words here and there. And in some of the classes, we could have an actual discussion and, even touring, the virtual touring of the cities. They loved the money project. It was one of the scaffolding lessons as well, where we looked at the money of this country. They got cut and glue, and they played with this money and doing the market, and that was a lot of fun. Then there was a section on food. We looked at ingredients of different foods, learned the word sweet and sour and bitter and tasty. And in some of the classes, we even got to do some tasting, not everything we could find in Russian store, but some students would share their family recipes and even bring something to the classroom. That was fun. At the very end of the project, we got to put everything together. First, let me show you every country that we did: Ukraine, Estonia, Kazakhstan, Moldova, Georgia, Azerbaijan. And this is their put together work in progress, where I lined up on the board how we're gonna arrange everything. So every class would do a certain way, and they were just working in a team, putting everything together. And I tried every student to be included. We have a flag of one student, money of another student, food cuttings from third students, and so on. And every class had their teamwork show off. The older classes did some nice research on languages and ethnicities. This is my heritage students group. They did a lot of in-depth reading and discussion on the topic. And this is the actual presentation that we did during the chapel time. Each class got to present. They show off their big poster. They would choose a presenter, and I asked it to be an American student, so they could speak in English using some of the Russian words that they've learned about this country. And they just walked around and looked at other classes' work. And at the end of the presentation, we did some treats. We did Ukrainian candies. I think it was Bielechka, and everybody loved it. And we found a wafer cake, actually from Azerbaijan, in one of the Russian stores. Everybody loved it as well. And at the very end, we did a reflection where every class had to write or draft or draw something about every country they looked at during the presentation. So not just their own, which was easy because they learned a lot, but about other countries as well. So that's me, and I'm done.
Okay. Thank you so much. Next, we'll hear from Elisa Frost.
Okay, thank you, Irina, Anna, Katya, all. I'm Elisa Frost, Roland Park Country School, Baltimore, grades 9 through 12. I'd like to talk about strategies I've used to meet needs of heritage learners of Russian studying alongside peers who've not grown up with exposure to the language. When and how is differentiation appropriate, and when and how might it be counterproductive? Of course, we all do it all the time, but sometimes I have overshot. So I'm going to approach the the topic through the lens of a guiding question that I learned from Cindy Martin. And the question is this: what does each student need from me? From me, in this place, in this moment. So, of course, first they need for me to be the architect of a learning community that will support and challenge and uplift each of them. So ideally, I'm trying to design a space where the students are buttressing one another. Very early on, we devote some intentional time to social emotional learning. Students write and share personal poems in English. This is obviously not differentiation, but building a common culture that honors the specificity of community members. Also, I name the elephant in the room. It can be intimidating to non-heritage learners to be grouped with students who already know Russian, and heritage learners come with all kinds of complexes related to what they think they should already know or be able to do. So again, not differentiation, but laying bare some differences. Talking from the start about how people coming at this from different backgrounds can draw on different kinds of prior knowledge and harness different approaches and strategies is an invitation to step away from a deficit mindset. Students feel less apologetic and defensive and more willing to share their strengths. In terms of practical language instruction, something I do anyway, of course, but that works well for mixed groups, is to teach reading and writing from the very start around basic phonetic principles. I'm sure we all do this: vowel reduction, devoicing, consonant assimilation, and to be explicit that understanding these concepts is going to help regular learners sound more Russian and will help heritage speakers with their spelling. Maybe obvious, but it's giving everyone a common set of tools, and specifically tools that let them approach the language analytically, which is something brand new and kind of radical for heritage speakers. These are the very tools each group needs to get some immediately audible or visible results. They are the beginning of a shared language that they will use to progress together in Russian. Along similar lines, and even though it's an unpopular pedagogical approach these days, I do put a lot of emphasis on grammar as a shared language. This is certainly something heritage speakers need from me that they're probably not getting at home. But how to talk about this grammar requires some different sorts of approaches depending on who's in the room. So what does differentiation look like when it comes to grammatical literacy? That's analytical, not intuitive grammatical literacy I'm talking about. Of course, it makes sense that it's sometimes the heritage speakers who need the most, dare I say, remedial approach when it comes to explaining Russian grammar, because the whole enterprise needs to be defamiliarized. So for certain heritage speakers, I found it useful to use methods that I developed for students with language-based learning differences. One example is a way of talking about grammatical case. So think of each case as a pie. The pies have flavors. This is important because the fillings are different colors and there's a whole color coding system. The pie metaphor is about functions of each case. There are different slices, some of them really big, some of them very skinny and specific. In terms of endings, we continue in the realm of food metaphors. Here it's about the menu. Each pie has its own accompanying menu. You use the same menu for the whole pie, and which slice you're having does not matter. The rule is this: you can't just make up endings. You have to order off the menu. Not everyone needs for it to be explained like this, but some do. And sometimes it's the kids with the weakest overall language skills, and sometimes it's the ones who were born with Russian in their mouths. But it takes thinking about it in a whole different way to make sense of it. So I find myself leaning into less differentiation in general, I would say, or sometimes not the sort of differentiation that might seem like the obvious choice. So I will end there.
Thank you, Elisa. And next we'll hear from Lauren Nelson.
Hi, I'm Lauren Nelson, and I would love to see your pie ideas, by the way. I'm Lauren Nelson. I teach at Pritzker College Prep in Chicago, Illinois. It's my 11th year teaching Russian 1, and every year I have over 160 students. And there's a book called Miss Nelson is Missing about a teacher. It's not based on my life, but it often feels kind of similar to it. Click to the next slide. So when I was creating my presentation, I decided to talk about my handouts and corresponding slides and how I support my diverse learners, so students with learning disabilities, multilingual learners, because I have a lot of students who are learning English alongside Russian, and all of my other students of varying ability levels in my classes. And if I had a corporate sponsor today, it would be Google Docs, Google Slides, and strangely enough, Carl's Jr., which I've never even stepped foot in, but you'll see why in a second. So I wanted to be able to show you what my classroom looks like. That's a TV screen up there, and that's where the students see my slides every day. So I'm going to switch over to a student-focused slide. So you can see here how the slides are mirrored in the documents that my students are holding, my 4 students, so that I do a lot of screenshots so they can see exactly what's up on the screen. And it's not like the most aesthetically pleasing slide, but it really helps a lot. So here's the student-facing slide, so you can kind of see what happens when they like walk in the room. The activity and directions are simple and concise. They're broken down into clear steps, and even if a student is running in late, they can like pick up the paper and they know what's going on, and they don't need me to like catch them up on anything. I have an embedded YouTube video as a timer, and I live and die by these timers, and students can kind of pace themselves. And then the little popsicle stick image, it tells students like, I'm going to be calling on you because your name's on a popsicle stick. So I'll like pick a stick and be like, Katya, what did you find about this burger here? So again, all of my paper-based activities have corresponding slides with screenshots of the documents. And every day I have a handout and slides. So students grab the handout when they come in. The pros are that students always know where we are in the document, and they have no excuse to be like, well, I don't know what we're doing. They can see exactly where to write. And then there's a Batman sword that you can see in the picture. I have a physical one of those in my classroom, and I can like point on the TV. And that makes me able to kind of point to a specific place in the document instead of like going around to every single student's paper. I can just point with my sword up there. And then also I can make the documents interactive because I can use like slide animations to fill in the blanks. And then since everything's clearer, I don't have to re-explain things as much. The cons of this method is that my computer desktop is like full of screenshots and I have to like clean it all the time. And it's a little bit more work on the back end, but it ends up being worth it in the end. I also use screenshots to preview what my students are going to do next in class. So regarding that Carl's Jr. website, or Carl's Jr. from earlier, I had students get Chromebooks, but before they went and got their Chromebooks, I showed them a screenshot of the website. And I was like, this is what you're about to be looking at. And I was able to like point at specific things and say, what do you think I'd see if I clicked on this section right here? And then students can kind of like start pre-thinking about the activity. Then I'll show them what the website actually looks like. There's that burger again. And then they were like, oh, I saw that burger earlier in class. And that helps them remember that they can do this on their own and that they shouldn't be just like translating the whole webpage into English using Google Translate, but they can go and read about the hot star burger. This is another exact screenshot of the paper that would be in front of my students. You can, oops, sorry, that was my own self-alarm to remind me I have about 1 minute left. There's a teacher exemplar, so students can self-assess whether they're on the right track so they can see my example. I put tables and graphic organizers in all of the documents I give my students, and that makes it so that they can like go through this website on their own and independently read the different sections. They're supposed to find 3 words for each section, and then the little plus is if students wanted to do a little extra work. Here's one of my students' work after he went through the website. And then here's the second page. And I gave this assignment on the day that they were doing a reading test. So this also served as some practice so they could like read some familiar words. They're not really like great Russian words to use. A lot of them are kind of turned into English words, but easy for them to read. And a few other quick examples. Yeah. Here's a screenshot of a chart that they had in front of them that they could use to take something from every column and make a longer sentence. And I have like little nudges so that if a student's more advanced, it could be like, hey, if you don't want to use one of the places above, use something else you can say. Or for like reasons why you like to do or eat tacos in the restaurant, you can explain it however you can say. You don't have to use one of like the scripted examples. I'll show them how to even like have their paper on their desk. Like they need to have the left one here and that one here, and they can reference both at the same time. So I use it to kind of show how the paper should be arranged. There's some sentence frames for writing support at the top of papers. No, it's not as exciting. And so in conclusion, screenshots have been really important for my students to see where they are. Embedding timers helps them pace themselves and helps me keep on track as well. And then also including visuals helps them remember what's going on.
Thank you so much. So now I think we have some time, a few minutes for questions or comments or discussions. And so you could ask a question either by raising your virtual hand or you can put it in the chat. And let me check the chat because there's already something here. Ah, all right, a nice comment saying that they love how Irina's students put everything together in a poster. So yeah, here's our moment to have a little discussion. Our group will go until 5:30 and then we'll pass it along to the next group. I just have a comment for Elisa, who was thinking that maybe some of the things you were doing were not differentiation, but all of the things you were doing, like community building in your classroom and just making these two groups of people able to work together, the heritage learners and the non-heritage, and the methodology that you were using, all of those things actually really do fall into the realm of differentiation, either of the learning environment or of the process by which kids are doing things. And so, yeah, you're right on with a lot of the philosophy.
Well, in a way, it ended up being kind of an anti-differentiation talk and in a differentiation share out. And that's not what I think, but I thought it was important to lay that groundwork. Because I thought, for example, of like my strongest student ever, right? Who I thought really needed to bring her up and teach to her level and above. And what I found was that what she needed from me was not, she gets this amazing Russian language and cultural education at home from her mother, right? And it turned out that she was somebody who needed socialization and she needed to work on executive function skills. And it was really more important for her to be a part of this group than to make her Russian even better than it already was, because what was she even doing in my class? She was that good.
Absolutely. Yeah, so you're doing it by learner needs. I mean, that's totally part of it. I see a couple of comments in the chat. Someone uses the Russian subway website in a similar way to Lauren. And also, here's a question for anyone. What do you find are the biggest challenges when it comes to differentiated instruction? For me, it's just trying to be conscious of all the elements of it and ask myself each day, am I touching an element that's going to help a lot of my students? Am I consciously incorporating some of these best practices that will help my students?
The biggest challenge for me is always balancing between first the heritage learners and the beginners, the very, very beginners who just came to the classroom and doesn't know anything. I know the general idea is to try to go with the strongest ones, but when you have only two heritage learners who speak Russian, right, and everybody else doesn't know any Russian, that's kind of hard on everybody else if you go with the assignment for the stronger students. So I prefer going along with the beginners, and then I would do some extra work with the heritage learners. And another challenge what I found, especially with a cultural differentiation, is trying not to offend anyone. Because, in a current political situation, there are some sensitive topic. People coming from a different backgrounds. We are Christian schools, and there are people coming from mostly Muslim countries, Russian-speaking countries in the former USSR republics. So trying to make those learnings as less stereotypical as possible, and as less sensitive as possible, I think is also a very big challenge for the teacher. And you've got to do a lot of preparation before the class to make sure you know what are the sensitive areas before you dive into this, huge pool of material that you're going to discuss.
I will say time. You need to spend a lot of time to differentiate. So it's like the biggest challenge. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And with your presentation and just, taking that one common text, because that's an approach I tend to use often too, and creating all of the products for it, all of the practice for it. That's incredible. And it's so clear from your lessons that you really, used those proficiency levels very consciously and really got the students to be able to work at level with those tasks that you set to them. And that, so much time, really is.
And then assessment also, like it's challenging, like to how do we then assess students with different levels?
One challenge that I have, and it's sort of a regret that I have when I'm working in mixed groups, specifically heritage learners and so-called regular learners, is the way I sometimes feel I need to change what comprehensible input means, because there are so many fun, dramatic ways I communicate with students who really don't understand everything. And then it's easy for both those students and for me to get a little self-conscious about it when there's somebody who knows exactly what this is about, right? And so that dynamic really changes. And I think that's why I tend to, I've shifted more recently toward more grammar instead of less grammar, even though it's the opposite of the way the way I've been trained.
I have a logistical question for Lauren, and that is, how are your students managing your fabulous, fabulous handouts? I would never want to see one of those, even if it was like a month old, in my recycling bin. What's your approach with it?
You mean like because I would be sad to see them throw them away?
Well,
Or-
I would be sad because it's a lot of work. And, I just wonder how they're managing those materials. Do they have binders? Do they keep work in the
they're
class?
not. So when I said that I give them new handouts every single day, it's because I just can't rely on them to bring them back the next time. And so I kind of have a setup where it starts with like an opening activity, and there's like the old information that I like take that was new information in the last class, and I move it over. So all the important stuff from last time is like still on the page, and we're kind of like always making a chain. And my hope is that it's staying in their brain, and usually it is, and that's probably the best kind of learning, is where it's in here. I've learned not to have any feelings about packets being ripped up or left on the ground, or
Thank you.
I have a small question to Lauren. Sorry, I missed part of your presentation. I just started watching it when you were speaking about the menus. So my question is, do you practice cooking with your students?
I would love to, but I have 160 of them, so I can't.
Okay. Because we arrange some workshops for cooking blini, for example, at our university, yes. And then you have to explain the ingredients in Russian and then what you do. So we do it in. Yeah.
All right, my name is Anna Surin, so I'm a chair of this session. I'll introduce our whole topic. Thank you so much for visiting us today. Today's topic is using authentic resources in the novice level classroom. And the first presenter will be Valeria Anderson. She teaches in Elbert County High School in Georgia.
Hello, everyone. I'm Valeria Anderson, and I'm a Russian teacher from Elbert County High School. And I'm teaching Russian language about 17 years now. I'm not a linguist. In Ukraine, I was teaching accounting and financing. But when I come to America and start teaching in a high school as a math teacher, they told me Spanish class is very full, so teach Russian. and I start teaching. I don't know how. So take a lot of courses, and 17 years I'm teaching now. I'm doing my presentation a little bit different because I did not know what the format. So I just to tell you a few examples. First, my example will be my podcast. I'm using a podcast, Raketa. Maybe some of you know this podcast. Raketa. It's very helpful and designed specifically for novice and intermediate learners for Russian. And it has a lot of short audios with transcript recorded by native speakers. And so one of the lessons I have here, the examples of my student work. So the objective of the lesson will be student will be able to improve their listening and speaking skills using comprehensible input method. So for example, the students listen in the story, Моя собака. So if you are familiar with this podcast, I'm happy because this is a very good a lot of different stories. So they need to listen. They don't have any transcript. They listen it. And they need to identify at least 10 facts, 10 sentences that they do understand. The text is quite difficult because that's why I'm using comprehensible input. So the level higher, a little bit advanced, not a little, this particular more advanced, like a 2 probably levels, but still you see he managed find something that he understands, the student. Then I provide them transcript of this story. They need to find these 10 sentences highlighted, you see. And then they need to add, when they're reading it, they need to add 4 more, what they do understand, 4 more sentences. Then we actually illustrate this story. Here is some examples how they illustrate the story. It's very, very simple. It's nothing really special. They just need to illustrate the story about this dog. And they retell this story to their partner. So each of the students have their own story because some of them have one sentence understand, another one. So they 2 of them together, they kind of complete this story. I really like this activity and students love it. They already know many of the stories from this podcast. The another one, it's a really fun activity. When we are on a unit school, we have like a drum кружок, because in many Russian schools it's very popular, have a drum кружок. And Kukolny theater also is very popular in a Russian-speaking country. So we have our puppets, and we very often using them, especially in Russian one. This is a group of Russian 2 students. So we are watching puppet show from YouTube, Сказка о рыбаке и рыбке. And then after that, they already know the сказка because we saw it before and we discuss Pushkin, we talk about the Pushkin, about the сказка. They even before wrote their own story. So now they saw how the Kukolny theater is going on in a Russian school. So they give them opportunity to experience something really creative, fun. And the lesson objective is develop cultural connection and build conversation skills. I think I cannot, can I move this stuff for me? And I don't know if you're able to listen. I think, so they just doing a little.
Это часы, конфета и печенье. Я люблю чай, я люблю печенье.
So this is very small sketch of them, the friends coming to somebody's house and how she is preparing for them menu, and all the menu will be sweets, all the sweets. So it's fun activity. It's very fun. So the another one here you will see And this was there from cartoon Varishka. We are using, after watching the Varishka, we wrote using the past tense gлаголы, verbs. We are recreating a story based on the cartoon. So that's it.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Next will be Irina Feofanova from the Enlightium Academy.
Okay,
Irina,
hello
will
again, everyone. It's very nice to see you all again. And I think it's wonderful how the two share groups are coinciding. I think a lot of Anna's and Lauren's materials were using authentic resources already in their differentiation presentation. My next presentation will be something I'm doing in Enlightium Academy, which is online school, where I'm piloting a course that I wrote up for the 6th grade. Right now, students from 6th, 7th, and 8th grade are taking it as a pilot to see how they like the course. And I use the authentic resources a lot during the cultural section of the lessons. And I have a few examples here, but I think I will probably just have time for one. One of the examples, I'm using the Authentic Online School Uniform Store website while learning about uniforms in Russian schools. I don't have the topic of clothes in Russian 1, but this gives students a little glimpse on the vocabulary and on the topic, so they could continue learning it in Russian 2. And I'm introducing it in the topic of school. And I start from a very general background, general cultural background on how Russian school system is structured and what kind of school uniforms they used to have, they have now, and we talk about a dress code and how it's different from a uniform. And we usually do it all in English because this is just a cultural background that I want them to have to understand the differences between the American and Russian school culture. Then the first time they go to the website, they do it just to look at it visually. They look basically how kids dress to school. And this is a really nice website that shows the collections of different clothes that different schools prefers their school uniforms. And we talk how the school can choose a collection, or school can choose just a set of colors, or can be a little more relaxed and just have a set of rules of what to wear, what to not wear. There are some schools who say just use blue and white, nothing else. So these are the things we look at first. So first time they go to this website, they don't understand anything because they barely started Russian, and they also look visually what the uniform can look like. And the first assignment they have here is just an optional fun task. Try to color it. Look at this color scheme. How do you think it can look? What would you like to wear? Then after that, I go already to the project lesson where they have to learn the vocabulary that they need. And we start with the Quizlet flashcards. And I'll just show you how my project lesson looks. They start with flashcards, and when they're done with flashcards, they can switch to they can switch the study mode. They can go to learning or matching or testing. They still have their reference vocabulary list. After that, they look here and they already can ask questions. Что это? Это галстук. Что это? Это свитер. Что это? Это кардиган. And then after that, again, we're going to the website and I'm asking them to describe the actual uniform. Кто это? Мальчик или девочка? Это мальчик. Что у него есть? У него есть рубашка, брюки и галстук. Какая рубашка? Рубашка голубая. So we do these exercises with them. And after that, I suggest them to be creative. There are some kids who say, oh, I don't know how to design my own. It's not my strength. So I tell them, here is a bunch of printable. Just choose the printable and color the way you want. Choose the color scheme that you want. Some of the students they like to play and they like to color and they don't want to write Russian. They want to do something with their hands at Russian class. And I tell them, okay, let's design your own. Pick a paper doll, cut it out, draw your own paper clothes. Make sure it's school appropriate. And we are in Christian school here. We have our own dress code. So they're doing that. And at the very end, here is an example how they need to describe the uniform they created. Это Анжела, у нее есть белая блузка, коричневая юбка, белые гольфы и черные туфли. So they need to record their own description. They need to upload what they got, take a picture of what they designed, either coloring or their own design creation, and describe it with words and a recording.
На 5 минут.
And yeah, this is all about my first example, and this is one of the students' work. She didn't go with the color scheme; she just wanted to draw it. And some of the other examples I just mentioned before, I do use Subway a lot, but we talked about it. I will just let somebody else to share their knowledge and experience with using authentic materials. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Спасибо большое. Спасибо. The next presenter will be Wendy Whitehead Martelle from the University of Alaska, Fairbanks.
Hello, how are you all?
Very
It's
good,
nice to
thank
see
you.
Yeah, it's nice to see you. So I'm going to be talking today about how I use an authentic story in the first year classroom. And how stories can be used to teach grammar. So first, I'm going to give a very short description of the PACE model. So this is a story-based approach to teaching grammar, and also my implementation of it in first year Russian. So essentially what the students are able to do by the end of this unit is to identify, analyze the prepositions v and na along with their cases and use them in a short story that they write at the end of the unit. So the PACE model from Adair Halk and Donato in 2002, it's teaching grammar through stories, and I've chosen Chiborashka. My first year students love Chiborashka, and this particular story that I use in this unit is Chiborashka's origin story. So there are 4 phases to this approach with presentation, attention, co-construction, and extension. But before getting to the actual presentation phase, it's a really good idea to do a pre-presentation type of activity, especially if you're using an authentic resource that has a lot of vocabulary that students are unfamiliar with and that they don't know that appears in the story with some frequency. And also a review for familiar words that might pop up in the story as well. So this is an example of how I introduced new vocabulary. So I teach online synchronous. So I use Google Slides a lot, and we manipulate things on the slides like mix and match. So there's an example of how they're introduced to new vocabulary. Now the presentation phase, the instructor actually tells the story 3 times. So I used an adapted text. So I took the original text, I adapted it. I consulted a native Russian speaker to ensure that the text didn't sound contrived, that it sounded authentic enough. And as I was telling the story, I used accompanying images and key phrases to go along with the telling. And telling it in person, you can exaggerate your body language, facial expressions, intonation. These are all strategies to use during the presentation phase. So at this stage, they're only listening to the story. And then at the second stage, the attention, this is a very, very short phase. This is where the students are actually given the transcript of the story, and they see the story written. And it's also the time when you draw students' attention to the grammatical form that you want them to focus on. So in this case, it was these prepositions. I highlighted them in red and put them in bold. And then the next phase, the co-construction, is having them work together to figure out what the patterns are. So the important thing here about the co-construction is that the instructor doesn't give them the answers, but rather guiding questions like, so what do these words mean? When are they used? Where are they used? What kinds of verbs come before them? What cases go with them? Can you maybe come up with a rule? What kind of rules can you come up with for how these words work? And this can be done in either partners or small groups. And then once you come back as a whole group and talk through what each small group got to, and once I felt comfortable, like, okay, they got, they have a foundation of when to use these prepositions and the cases, then there's the extension phase. And here, the important part of the extension phase is that the students do some sort of activity where they actually practice the grammatical form. This can take the form of any range of activities, from a homework assignment. I ended up doing a final project where the students wrote Cheburashka's next adventure. And so some of them wrote about Cheburashka going to the moon, going to space, coming to Alaska. You can also can have them continue the story, do like acting out, or doing like a doll theater. There's so many possibilities with the extension phase. And what I've learned from PACE, from what students have shared with me, is, and I know this was mentioned in a few presentations already during our session, is how much they appreciate authentic materials in the classroom, because they're like, oh, this is a real example of how the language works. And some students mentioned how like a story just brings everything together. It provides a context. And some learners also appreciated working together, and they can become like grammar detectives in this kind of approach. And that was something that they appreciated as well. So there's my references, and thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much. That was even under 5 minutes. I don't know how you managed, but you did it.
I timed myself this morning. I was like, okay, I'm like right at 5. So if I can continue
Perfect.
it.
Okay. Thank you so much. So I'll be the last presenter here in this share out session. So my name is Surin. I am going to be presenting on using the greeting cards, or открытки, in teaching the Russian language, culture, and history in novice level classroom, and a little bit beyond if time allows. So to give you a little bit of instructional context, I teach in the public high school in Georgia. My class is somewhere between 10 to 20 high school students. They're high schoolers, so the age range between 14 and 18 years old. They have no prior Russian language knowledge, so they're complete beginners. We start with the alphabet, and we meet for about 5 hours a week. I do have some native or heritage speakers, but they're in a separate class, so thankfully not mixed together with the complete novice learners. So my topic is открытка, is an authentic source. I love them. I used to collect them being a child, a teenager, and I do see sometimes the tasks like this when the students are asked to fill in the gaps and write поздравительная открытка to someone, a fictional character from a textbook. And I realized that our students, modern day teenagers, they have no idea what открытка is and how you actually write it, where you write it, what you write on it, and how you actually mail it. So I decided, let's teach that. So I give them a lot of examples what an envelope could look like in Russian. So where you put the recipient address, where you put your own information. I give them lots and lots of examples of открытkas that are already written in this Russian cursive language. And I do have some examples from textbooks where the congratulations is already written on открытка. So lots and lots of examples. When teaching unit on holidays and celebrations, the very first step, my novice level learners need to know the names of the Russian holidays, Russian speaking holidays, and they need to be able to match just the name with the symbols or the card, the images that correspond to the holiday that we're discussing. So this is an example of novice level work when the students, all they do is they match the image with the name of the holiday, Рождество, День Победы, Международный женский день, Новый год и так далее. And I hyperlink those examples. You can use them as class activities or as formative assignments if you wish. At the end, I'll provide a QR code if you're interested. All right. So once students master the names of the holidays, the symbols, I can do simple tasks like arrange the holidays in chronological order. Here is the list of the Russian-speaking holidays. Can you please sequence them starting with January 1st, how they would go logically? This is a simple activity, but I actually do have a collection of those открытки, greeting cards or postcards. So students working in small groups will receive a stack of 10 cards, and they also need to arrange them in chronological order with some oddballs like День свадьбы, поздравляем с днем свадьбы, or с днем рождения. Those holidays obviously can be anywhere during the year. All right. The intermediate level students, I know the title is novice level students, but if you're interested, students not only match the name of the holiday with the date, exact date, they also read other people congratulating each other, and they need to match those short, brief texts with the names of the holidays. And I hyperlink these examples as well. Then I actually, we practiced together completing the card. So here is the card halfway complete. Дорогая Наташа, поздравляю тебя с Новым годом. And on the right side of the screen, you see where would those pieces go? Where would квартира 36? Желаю счастья. Where would Вася, Наташе, Россия, город Москва, улица Мира, where they would go. So we would discuss where you position those elements on the card. And after we practice that, students are given an empty template, what goes on открытка, how to open in lines, how to congratulate people on different holidays, what to wish them, how to close your text, and finally, how to write your name and signature. We talk about куда и кому, how to write the address and the recipient name. And then we'll look at those dotted lines on the bottom. What is index? So an equivalent probably would be a zip code. So I show them how do you trace those dotted lines to actually put the zip code on the bottom so the machine can scan it easily, and students have fun doing that. And finally, here is the project that my students do, and that could be used as a summative project when students need to write, congratulate their Russian-speaking pen pal on a holiday, and they need to wish them all the best, and they need to design a greeting card so the front of the greeting card would actually represent the holiday that they're congratulating their friends with. So the color scheme and the elements must actually match, and I have a rubric to go along with it. So, and these are just some examples of students can create. С Новым годом, дорогой Василий, поздравляю с Новым годом, желаю счастья, здоровья в этот год, до встречи, Дима. This is an example of День космонавтики, и Международный женский день, и 1 мая. And then I ask AI ChatGPT to give me feedback and upgrade my project, and I also hyperlink the artificial intelligence upgraded project, and I hyperlinked it. So if you guys are interested, here is a QR code to this presentation, which has the hyperlinked samples as formative, summative, and the final project. And that's 5 minutes, 5 minutes. At this point, we're opening up for questions, comments, discussion. I see that Irina Feofanova already shared her presentation, and she put a link for scaffolding lessons in the chat. So anyone is welcome to ask questions, either by raising your virtual hand, typing, or just speaking. Unmute yourself and speak. Yeah, Tanya, please
sorry,
go ahead.
I'd like to have a little question, but I can't find the hand where to. I don't know. So thanks very much for the presentation, for all the presentation. Thanks to Anna also. Just wondering, as in the postcards, I saw they were in cursive. You showed some postcard with the cursive, and so do you show these postcards at the very beginning when the learners are at the very beginning of the A1 levels, or afterwards? I mean, because probably they have some difficulties reading cursive or writing cursive. I don't know, just a curiosity. Thank you.
You're absolutely right. When the first years when I started teaching, I was just introducing the print. Just that we would print like pre-kindergartners, and then we actually had a cultural exchange program when some of the students came to us, and we were interacting, and they were all writing in cursive, and my students didn't understand a thing. And then I realized, oh, I'm not doing them a service. So I started introducing both. Day one, completely novice learners, I introduced both. Here is the print, and this is how all educated adults and high schoolers, middle
Okay.
schools, elementary school students in the Russian-speaking world write. So I introduce both, and it's up to them what they choose, what they pick, but I do expose them to both. Of course, showing those old-fashioned written, handwritten greeting cards at Kritki, of course, they get scared, like, oh, I cannot do it, and then we decipher it all together. Let's read Dorogaya. What do you think it could be saying? So I have versions of both printed and cursive, and I want to
Okay.
expose them to as much as possible. Thank you for your
Okay.
question.
Thank you. Thank you.
Did someone else? Elisa, did you want to ask a question?
Yes, I have a question for Wendy. I would like to know more about what happens in your class between the time your first students are co-constructing this idea, like, oh, there's a va here. I think it has to do with being in. And then by the end, in the extension piece, they're writing these sentences using verbs of motion. So how long does it take for them to be able to do that, and how do they get there?
So there's a lot that comes before the PACE model too. So we go over verbs of motion beforehand so that they can identify what verbs of motion are in the text. So there's a lot of, I don't know, I hope it's scaffolding, but there's a lot of so they know who Cheborashka is. By that point, they've already seen some of the videos. And then this is like a culminating activity. So what happens before the PACE unit is kind of little pieces of, and the PACE unit kind of brings it together. Does that answer your question? Or do you actually want to know more about like what happens in like during the co-construction phase?
I think that answers it, but I guess it just surprises me that there's this moment when they're looking at that and kind of figuring out if they already know about verbs of motion.
Yeah.
How is it? It surprises me that I looking at all of those v's that are in red and figuring out that they're related and that they have something to do with each other. So I guess I'm just a little bit, I just want to learn more about how you do it.
Yeah. So it's not the very first time that they're seeing the and na. It's more of what, and it takes a while. Like the co-construction phase, it was the first time I did it, I was like, this is taking so long. It took them a really long time to think in that way, to see patterns in that way. So it took a lot of coaxing from me to say, okay, let's look at the ending of this word. Oh, this is a prepositional case. Yeah. Okay. What kind of verb is this, or what's happening here? So it took quite a lot. It's not like and this took 2 weeks. Like this unit is a 2-week unit. So it's not just it doesn't happen in just a couple hours. So I presented it in 5 minutes, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it doesn't represent really how long it takes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else has a question, a comment? Okay, checking. I have a question for Valeria then. Valeria, would you mind sharing that Varishka template, right? When you show the movie Varishka, and then you have the verbs on the left, and then students have to conjugate the verbs in the past tense, I believe, and then like write sentences. Do you mind sharing that template or that worksheet with you? Because I think my students would benefit from that.
I don't know how to do it. Let me do it.
Well, if no one else is interested, I can just email you and ask you, do you mind sharing this one? Yes, this one. This is
Okay, hold on. This one. I don't know how to do it.
No, it's okay. Can you email me a copy of that?
Yes. I will send you I will send you.
I love it. I think it's so visual and just
Yes, and the varishka, they don't have any words there. You know, this is a cartoon.
Silent movie, yeah.
Yes, the cartoon
Mhm.
don't have any words, so that's what they create in a story. They can like give them the story. Yeah, this is very good. I will send it to you. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Stop sharing.
All right. Thank you all so much for the ideas and inspiration. Thank you, Irina. Right, I'll give it one more minute. And if no one else has any questions and comments, Elisa Frost, thank you so much. Thank you all.